Dear friend, everything you need to know about the aftertaste of Trump's meeting with Zelensky in Washington. See what we came up with in the episode and to get started, like this video. Well, share your thoughts in the comments. We are starting. Russia does not stop shelling Ukrainian cities. At 1:30 a.m., the enemy attacked a gas station in Sumy with a drone. 2 women were injured, cars were damaged, and the regional center was damaged. Russian drones terrorize at night. At least 10 households in Stetskivska were also damaged by cabs and drones. In the Kharkiv region, Russian drones targeted a dormitory this morning, but there were no casualties. A man died in the car and 3 others were injured. At night, the Russians shelled the Chuhuiv district, damaging railway infrastructure and a house. There were power outages in the city. An enemy drone attacked a car in the Kherson region this morning. A 20-year-old woman was injured. 4 victims in the region in a day. The Russians hit critical infrastructure and residential areas. Houses, an administrative building, an educational institution, a bank, a bus, and private cars were damaged. 6 people injured in Donetsk region. 3 of them are in Drushkivka, which the Russians hit with bombs and drones. 3 more were injured after a drone hit near Privilya. 2 people were injured in Zaporizhzhia. The enemy attacked the Poltava district. And the college, a car, and an administrative building were damaged by nighttime shelling. A fire broke out at a warehouse of a city enterprise in Poltava due to a night attack. The fire covered 1,500 square meters, and there were no casualties. Let both declare victory and disperse along the front line, wherever it may be now. Donald Trump made this appeal to the presidents of Russia and Ukraine after talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky the day before in Washington. He spent 2.5 hours in the White House. It was planned that the issue would be the purchase of American weapons, in particular long-range Tomahawk missiles. But there are no decisions on this issue, and Trump asked him not to comment. At the same time, it has not been removed from the agenda, Zelensky said. About how everything went in the White House, what other results were achieved, a report by the owner of Rosbatenka TSNU USA, Olga Koshelenko.
This time, the Ukrainian delegation settled in Blair House, the White House guest house, literally across from the U.S. president's residence. Because of the annual meetings of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, finding available hotel rooms in downtown Washington this week was a near impossible task. But the meeting of the presidents is delayed for half an hour. At this time, Donald Trump is hosting the world-famous singer Andrea Bocelli. The sounds of his songs flow from the Oval Office. After spiritual nourishment, it's time for physical nourishment. The conversation with Zelensky is planned as a working lunch. Trump is greeting his guest on the porch of the West Wing.
President Trump, can you convince Vladimir Putin to stop the war in Ukraine?
Yes, we can.
Do you believe that Putin is negotiating in good faith?
The US president ignores this question. Later he will say he understands that perhaps Putin is stalling for time. But he, Trump, wants peace more than selling weapons to Ukraine. This visit by Zelensky to Trump is probably one of the most spontaneous. Less than a month has passed since their last meeting in New York, but after 2 phone calls over the weekend, they decided there are topics that can only be discussed face-to-face. The working lunch menu includes salad, chicken, and ice cream. But the president of Ukraine would have preferred for those present to look beyond their plates. Even before the start of the negotiations, TSN witnessed members of the Ukrainian delegation bringing in a map. On it, according to sources, are potential targets on Russian territory that Kyiv wants to strike in order to compel the aggressor to peace. The focus of the conversation was supposed to be the sale of weapons to Kyiv. Zelensky wants Patriot air defense systems and long-range Tomahawk missiles, Trump said ahead of the meeting, demonstrating his readiness to discuss it. But a phone call between Trump and Putin, which took place while Zelensky was already on a plane to Washington, dramatically changed the trajectory. During lunch, the president of Ukraine offers Trump a deal: American long-range missiles in exchange for Ukrainian drone technologies. Trump replied that he found the proposal interesting. However, after the talks, Zelensky will say there is no decision on the weapons, and the US president asked him not to comment on the issue publicly to avoid escalation.
We also talked about long-range weapons, of course. I don't want to make any statements on this issue. We decided that we would not talk about it because no one wants I mean, the President of the United States does not want an escalation. So these questions remain unanswered. Sorry.
After the meeting, Zelensky briefly returns to Blair House. He has an urgent call with partners from the coalition of the willing. He informed the Europeans about the talks and they discussed the latest on security guarantees and weapons. The Ukrainian president said, in the end, Trump will make only one statement. He wants peace. Let Zelensky and Putin both declare victory and stop shooting, Trump wrote on Truth Social.
In my opinion, they must stop the war immediately. You have to disengage along the front line, wherever it may be, otherwise it's going to be too difficult. You stop at the front line and both sides have to go home. To their families, stop the killing, and that's it. I told that to President Zelensky, and I told that to President Putin.
Zelensky responded to this at a press conference after the meeting. Ready for a ceasefire?
For the sake of our countries and in these circumstances, where we are now and what we have now. After all, such a country opposes us. I think we should stop where we are now. He is right, the President is right. We have to stop where we are. This is important. Stop and keep talking.
Now it's Putin's turn. Trump announced their meeting in Budapest within the next 2 weeks. The Financial Times reported exclusive details about the first talks between the leaders of the United States and Russia in Alaska the day before. The publication claims that not everything was rosy there. Putin tried to give Trump a history lecture about the Rurik dynasty and Yaroslav the Wise, which only irritated his interlocutor. Trump threatened to walk away and eventually cut the program. Putin did not agree to any concessions at that time, but it seems Trump decided to check. Did 2 months of pressure and threats affect the Russian leader? From Washington, United States, Olga Koshelenko, Maxim Shenkarenko, TSN 1+1.
They assured of continued support for Ukraine. European leaders comment on the meeting between Zelensky and Trump. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer noted on his social media that it was a productive conversation and reiterated that Britain will unwaveringly support Ukraine in its struggle and will continue to do so. Military and humanitarian aid. The results were also shared by the President of Finland, Alexander Stupa. The politician stated that they remain resolute in supporting Ukraine. This includes military and financial assistance, security guarantees, a ceasefire, and a peace process. Work is ongoing, and no one wants this war to end more than the Ukrainians. This is what Stop commented. Let me remind you that immediately after the talks with the American president, Volodymyr Zelensky made a joint phone call with the so-called coalition of the willing and informed them of the results of the negotiations. The European Union is already preparing to meet Putin, the Russian dictator who is on the EU sanctions list and suspected of war crimes, but will still be able to reach Hungary unhindered. This was confirmed by both her government and the European Commission, after the news about Budapest as a possible meeting place. Hungarian Prime Minister Orban has already spoken first with Trump, then with Putin. He says that preparations for the summit have begun and once again criticizes the European Union's strategy aimed at strengthening Ukraine. Hungary said its top diplomat Peter Szijjártó will receive the Russian president with respect, quote, will provide him with conditions for negotiations with the US leader, and Szijjártó said will not agree on this with anyone. At the same time, Brussels emphasizes the entry ban will not apply to Putin or his top diplomat Lavrov. The sanctions against them include freezing their assets, so it seems the Russians will still manage to fly to the Hungarian capital. The enemy has become more active on the front in the Oleksandrivskyi direction. The Institute for the Study of War reports this in its latest assessment. They write that the Russians have advanced somewhat in 2 settlements there, Poltava and Novovasilivske. Also, citing data from the UK's Minister of Defence, the Institute for the Study of War notes that the enemy has captured the village of Verbove in the Dnipropetrovsk region. This is also part of the Oleksandrivskyi sector. Analysts from the Deep State portal had already reported changes on the map in this direction the day before, noting that the enemy had advanced in 3 villages at once. Meanwhile, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reports about 15 Russian attacks there. The most assaults were in the Pokrovsk sector, where the enemy tried to break through our defenses 37 times. But the total number of combat engagements across the entire front for the day has decreased slightly to 128. Usually there are up to 200. The General Staff reports that the Russians are suffering serious losses in the Dobropilya direction. Here, the occupiers tried to advance with a column of combat vehicles, which our defenders destroyed before it even reached the front line. Soldiers of the Ukrainian Naval Forces, together with an SBU unit, conducted a successful special operation in the Mykolaiv region. Our defenders destroyed an entire ammunition depot belonging to the Russian occupiers in the area of the Kinburn Spit. The soldiers released spectacular footage on social media, adding that every accurate strike is a step towards victory. Quickly identifying a soldier and returning the body to their family. The Odesa region has become the first in Ukraine to launch a field base for forensic medical examinations. Near the place where refrigerated trucks bring the deceased, specialists have set up special tents where they conduct examinations and collect material for DNA analysis. This speeds up the identification process. Modern equipment for the laboratory and protective gear for the forensic experts was provided by the International Committee of the Red Cross. They plan to set up similar sites in other regions as well. Every day, Odesa's forensic experts examine hundreds of the deceased. They say they often see fallen soldiers with signs of torture. In addition, there have been cases where the Russians have booby-trapped the bodies.
There are certain forensic signs of this torture. For example, I had a body with a gunshot wound to the back of the head. It's clear that this was an execution. There were bodies, and these weren't isolated cases, where their hands had been severed.
When an expert was conducting an examination, a grenade with its pin still in was found inside a soldier's boot. However, all the bodies we receive from repatriation are inspected very carefully by sappers. But it's possible to miss something, and of course there are various explosives and grenades, and there's even photo evidence. Of course, the experts and investigators and the whole team working at the location are exposed to some danger.
An unexpected development has emerged in the high-profile detention of military personnel in Ternopil. 6 men are suspected of catching soldiers on the streets, putting them in vans, beating them, and demanding money. Immediately after this, an official statement appeared on the page of the Third Assault Brigade. The brigade knows that the detainees are allegedly its fighters. TSN correspondent Svetlana Pavuk has been piecing together this story.
Stay calm, you understand? The National Police is working.
The police released a video of the detention of a group of men in military uniforms who are suspected of abusing other soldiers. All incidents of humiliation and abuse were recorded in the rear. The victims are military personnel who were undergoing treatment or rehabilitation after being wounded. This is just one of many episodes of abuse, say the investigators. One serviceman who was being treated after an injury was caught on the street by the men, put in a van, beaten, and they demanded money for his release.
I received significant bodily injuries. Then I sat myself down. They subsequently asked me if I had any money on my person. I said, well, I have some, maybe I had about 200 hryvnias at most, something like that. They told me a specific amount that was needed, 50,000.
Another man, according to the investigation, was held in a basement for 3 days. Then they took him out to a road, beat him, took off his clothes, doused him with some mixture and forced him to run.
Then they doused me with some substance, I don't know if it was gasoline or diesel fuel, and forced me to run in front of the cars. And they were driving behind me in their cars. I ran for half a kilometer. I couldn't run anymore. I fell to the ground and said that I couldn't run anymore. And one of them pulled out a pistol and fired near my hand.
The police have provided a recording of a phone conversation between the suspects who are discussing this very abuse. Did he run away?
No, he was just completely undressed. Sprayed with pepper spray, he ran for half a kilometer. And on top of that, he was also beaten personally by Martin.
They asked if I could offer them something, if I wanted to see my wife and children, what I could offer them. Maybe give them a car so they would let me go. They were demanding something from me, so they would let me go.
Another victim had his car taken away and they used it. There was another case in Prikharpatia. There they stopped a car on the road, forcibly moved the driver to their car and stole his vehicle. In all cases, we are talking about the same suspects, say the police. And they are military personnel.
Ternopil detectives and investigators stopped the illegal activities of military personnel in our region. The perpetrators deprived people of their freedom, tortured them, and seized their property. During the searches, mobile phones, vehicles, weapons, and other physical evidence were seized from them.
The identities of these soldiers, who are suspected of a series of tortures, have not been officially disclosed. However, immediately after the detention, an official statement appeared on the social media page of the Third Assault Brigade.
The unit is familiar with the report of the National Police about the detention of a number of individuals in the Ternopil region who are allegedly fighters of the Third Assault Unit. The brigade is open to cooperation with law enforcement agencies.
At the trial, a man who introduced himself as the suspect's commander allegedly confirmed all 6 of the Third Assault Group, Suspilne Ternopil reports. However, there is no official information about their status yet. Suspects under arrest will not be able to be released on bail. Svetlana Pavuk, Vitaly Pavuk, Ternopil TSN, ODN plus ODN.
An enemy unmanned boat was destroyed by military sailors in Ukrainian territorial waters. The naval drone was approaching the route of civilian vessels heading to or departing from Ukrainian ports. The boat was discovered thanks to the joint work of the naval forces and the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense. Ultimately, the enemy target was destroyed by explosion. A local truce was established and repairs began. Damaged power lines are being restored at the Zaporizhzhia Nuclear Power Plant. They spoiled due to almost a month of starvation. This was announced by the IAEA. According to the head of the agency, Rafael Grossi, specialists were allowed into the facility after the ceasefire. And appropriate network maintenance is critically important for nuclear safety and facility operation. After all, for quite a long time, the ZNPP was supported by diesel generators. Let me remind you that the Russians occupied the station in March 2022, mined it, and relocated their military and equipment there. Ukrainian experts have repeatedly reported blackouts at the facility, and the state leadership constantly demands that the Russians return the Zaporizhzhia NPP in order to avoid a possible accident. There was no adequate protection against drone missiles at the capital's CHP plants, at least a week ago. Thus, on the air of the Night Watch project in the joint marathon, the head of the Vidnovlini agency commented on the topic surrounding the thermal power plant. According to Serhiy Sukhomlyn, currently CHPs have the lowest level of protection. The agency was approached only a few days ago about a project for a more reliable defense structure that is actually capable of protecting facilities from drone missiles. The controversy surrounding the protection of the CHP began a week ago, when the capital was almost completely destroyed for a day after another night attack was left without light. The president emphasized that CHP workers cannot rely solely on the work of the air defense system. But he added that while there is a war in the country, he will not comment on the actions of the mayor or other individuals involved in the defense of the CHPP. After that, the Kyiv city state administration responded to the complaints, calling them political manipulations. The deputy mayor stated that according to the requirements of the general staff, the capital's thermal power plants have the necessary first stage of protection. Serhiy Sukhomlyn confirmed its existence, but stressed that this protection is powerless against Russian weapons.
First of all, the substation needs to be protected, specifically the transformer, preferably with at least a second level of protection, and the pumping units need to be covered and protected.
Was this done in Kyiv?
No, it was not done. Kyiv was included in the list of facilities where this really needed to be done. In April of 2024, the government made a decision and gave us the opportunity to get involved, but no funds arrived. 3 or 4 days ago, the management of this heat and utility company came to us. We showed them our developments for protecting these facilities, a project we created this week. We said we are ready to give it to them, of course, for free, to provide all the recommendations they need from us. Take it, build it, and protect it.
And what did they answer?
Well, they said they would protect it.
So this was 3 or 4 days before the strike on October 10th? No, after the strike. After the strike, yes.
Who should now be held responsible for this kind of protection? What do you think? Please comment under this video and don't forget to like this segment for the TSN team. It's very important. Moving on. At least 8 people were injured on the Kyiv-Odesa highway where a minibus overturned. The accident occurred in the village of Kominka, 40 kilometers from Odesa. According to witnesses, the minibus driver fell asleep at the wheel. The police have not yet officially confirmed this information. The accident caused a major traffic jam on the highway, and police had to regulate traffic for several hours. a scandal in the British royal family. The younger brother of King Charles has renounced his title and honors. Prince Andrew made this decision after many years of accusations of sexual crimes. The scandalous details have resurfaced as last week saw the release of memoirs by Virginia Giuffre, the woman who accused the prince of sexually assaulting her when she was a teenager. Andrew has always denied these accusations. However, he has been repeatedly criticized for another connection, his friendship with the late American millionaire Jeffrey Epstein, who was accused of pedophilia. Andrew's reputation suffered irreparable damage, so in 2019, he stepped back from all royal duties, and in 2022, he was stripped of his military ranks and royal patronages. Now he is renouncing the title of Duke of York, although he will continue to live in the royal residence. King Charles III has reportedly reacted positively to his brother's decision. According to polls, stripping Andrew of his remaining royal titles is supported by 67% of Britons.